Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you all are doing well. Happy New Year. Hope that everyone is having a wonderful New Year so far. Man, we're about halfway through this season, and today I have another guest. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, Terrence, thank you so much. Happy to be here on the podcast. Craig King here. By day, I'm Director of Teacher Leadership for Palmetto State Teachers Association. I also serve as the site coordinator for the Call Me Mr. program at Columbia College, one of our many cohorts across the state and country. And a family man married to Tasia King. We have one daughter, Sanaya, active in the community, cancer survivor, lifelong educator, lifelong learner, brother, friend, husband, uncle, godfather, all of that good stuff. I just love people. The older I get, I realize that is where I get recharged, to be around people, and to help people. You know, not to get too deep, but that is just what my dad and my mom and my family taught me to be, how to be. And I just love it. I love every day waking up and being able to inspire somebody.
First of all, thank you for being a guest on my podcast. Thank you in your busy schedule that we can coordinate and get you on here, man. I've been meaning to have you on here since last season, but I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna hit Craig up and we're gonna make this thing happen this season. And that's what we did.
It'll work. It worked out.
Yeah.
I was on 26. Get back here. My GPS said 4:45, and I said, I don't need no backup traffic. I don't need the traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, congratulations on being one of the 12 Black leaders to know in South Carolina.
Oh, I appreciate that, T. I appreciate that. Huge honor. When Adam from the Post and Courier called and left a message, I thought he was calling me to get a reference for somebody else, honestly.
Wow.
It's a huge honor. And I'll tell you, like I told a few other people, like as soon as I got the recognition or told that I received it, the first word that popped in my head was collaboration, because I've been blessed to be around so many people. And so it's an individual recognition, but to me, it's really a recognition for all the people that I've been blessed to be around, whether it's work, whether it's philanthropic, whether it's my family, the work that all of those entities have done together. Just me being a part of that it's good for that to be recognized and not necessarily me, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had one of your fellow nominees just had KJ on an episode. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy is I was supposed to record with him before that, but something got mixed up and then we recorded after. And even like the day I thought about hitting you up, I hadn't even seen this announcement yet. And then when I hit you up and then I saw it, I was like, wow, I guess I was right on time. I was thinking it was supposed to be early, but maybe this was the time.
Yeah. KJ is amazing, man. And the timing works out the way it's supposed to work out. And when you said KJ just now, I immediately thought about this, like the work that KJ has been putting in for years.
Yeah.
It's almost like a windfall, the James Beard recognition that he has, the 12 leaders to know in South Carolina. It's amazing to see that his work is being recognized and the impact that he's having in culinary from a very unique perspective. I'm just happy for him. Happy for my fellow Bulldog.
Yeah, that's something else I told him too. I was like, man, I got enough of you state guys on here. I need to get some of my Benedict alumni on here, get some kind of balance this thing out.
Hey, you can't help who's out there doing it. I'm just saying. Look, let me stop. My mom's gonna watch this. My mom is a graduate of Benedict, so let me pipe down a little.
you're the site coordinator for Call Me Mr. at Columbia College. First of all, until last year, it always skips my mind that Columbia College now has male students because when we
Mm-hmm.
were in college, it was
Mm-hmm.
an all female college.
Right.
So that's something that's already unique. But how did you come about to be the site coordinator for Call Me Mr.? And for anybody who's not familiar with that program, what is Call Me Mr.?
Sure. So I'll start with what is Call Me Mister, and then I'll go back to kind of how I got involved with being a site coordinator. If that's cool. So Call Me Mister was started in 2000, and the primary goal in 2000 when it was started was to increase the pool of Black men in elementary school classrooms. And so, in order to do that, Clemson, who houses Call Me Mister, who where the headquarters is located, how could they have reached that goal? So they went to our private HBCUs as their first cohort. So you had Benedict College, shout out to Benedict, Morris College, and Claflin University were the original Mister cohorts where they had their first graduating class in 2004 with the likes of Mr. Hayward John, who's now in Orangeburg, Howard John, his twin brother, Mark Joseph, and countless others who were part of that first initial cohort at Claflin University. And so now, since then, has expanded to 27 institutions across the state, including two-year institutions, small liberal arts colleges like Columbia College, our larger colleges like a Clemson University, USC Upstate. We're just all over the state. And we've also spread nationally. As far west as Denver, where Dr. Rashad
Oh
Anderson is
wow.
the site coordinator out there, who was previously at South Carolina State University. Texas, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, just to name a few of the states and universities that are now Call Me Mr. Partners. And so since then, the program has expanded, but you will find the vast majority of Misters being Black and brown men, which is something that has attracted me to Call Me Mr. years ago. So when I was a student at South Carolina State University, the cohort that they now have was not established yet. So I wasn't able to be a Mister as an undergrad. But that's not a regret, but I wish it was there when I was there.
Yeah.
However, a few years later, I started doing some professional development for Call Me Mister, partnering with Winston Holton, who is on staff at Call Me Mister, and the executive director, Dr. Roy Jones, who's still the executive director now of Call Me Mister. And I just started doing some work for him and pouring into him to the fact in 2009 at their summit at Claflin, got named an honorary Mister, which is pretty cool.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
so since 2008, Terrence, I've been around Call Me Mister. I've been immersed in their work. When they celebrated 20 years back in 2020, I helped them help organize a legislative Hill Day forum. And so when the opportunity came about at Columbia College, when they decided to go co-ed and welcome men on campus, Dr. Reggie Wicker, shout out to Dr. Wicker, who's director of personnel, I believe, in Lexridge 5 now. He was the founding site coordinator because I call him the Call Me Mr. Whisperer, because he also got the Call Me Mr. program at Newberry off the ground.
Okay.
And so he did the same thing at Columbia College. And so once he got everything squared away, then they were ready to hire a permanent site coordinator. And so naturally I applied, and it was a good fit for me because in my full-time job with PSDA, we have a PSDA student chapter at Columbia College. I already knew many of the staff members in the Division of Education, great working relationship. But like everybody else, I had to apply and answer the tough questions. But I've been well equipped to do this work for a long time. It's not like I just heard about Call Me Mister 3 years ago when I applied. I've been around the program since about 2008.
Wow. This brings me to something that I talk about often, something that I didn't realize until a couple of years ago, that I didn't have any black male teachers
Mm,
until college, right? And I
yeah.
often wonder if I had noticed that before. And it's crazy that I really didn't notice that until like having a conversation. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if I had noticed that before, would that have affected my choice in becoming a teacher, in college? If Call Me Mister was
Yeah.
there. as you know, I come from a family of educators, and I mean, I even took teacher cadets in school, but
Mhm.
it's just something I just didn't want to do. But now looking back, I'm like, is it because the representation wasn't there? Because that really does matter. Like
Yeah.
seeing, like I could just imagine just, being a young black male in school and seeing like a male teacher. I mean, even thinking back about it is like when we would have substitute teachers and they were black males, it was just like, okay, okay. But it only lasted like a day.
Hmm.
So I think this program is awesome. I wish
Yeah.
something like that was around when I was in school, but like we talked about earlier, timing is everything. So I guess it happened when it was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that representation matters, and that's one thing that drew me to education as a vocation. For me, growing up, I wanted to be like my oldest brother, Carlton King, and he majored in computer science when he went to state, and I was just like, well, I want to do what my brother did, right? And so, but I had an experience. My senior year in high school, shout out to Coach Michael Haynes, who was the FFA advisor, and also um, he called me one day and he made me project lead for a program called Project for Pals, where myself and other seniors at Manning High School, we mentored a third grade student, and so I mentored a student by the name of Sterling my entire senior year, and that really opened the door to what I knew in my heart what I was supposed to do, which was being a teacher, and so. Um, and I look at how my former students interact with me when I see them. Many of them adults, families, and
Yeah.
one some of which that are in education. Shout out to
Wow.
Gabriel Nkata, who is a music teacher in Georgia now. Who told me, he said I'm the reason why he decided to become a teacher. And
Wow.
you're right. And give yourself some grace too, Terrence, because when you're in a certain environment or any environment, and when you're young and impressionable and you see what the representation is, you assume that's normal,
Yeah.
right? So if you see white females and white males and black females, because you probably had some black females as teacher, I'm
Yeah. A
assuming.
couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a few. So you assume that's the norm. So you wouldn't think that black men would gravitate to that, and there were small numbers, right? Too.
Yeah.
I didn't have many growing up too. And so that representation matters. If anyone says anything otherwise, that, oh, we only just look at the qualifications, that is not the truth of so many people. Sometimes seeing someone that looks like them, that is articulate, that can relate to them, that can use their culture as a way to connect with them, whether they're black, white, or Asian or whatever, that matters to some people.
Yep.
Now, I also believe that our students should have a wide range of experiences and teachers. So I'm not advocating saying every teacher a child has should be black, but I am saying the vast majority of students are going through their K-12 education not seeing someone that looks like me and you that can teach them not only content knowledge but also how to be a productive citizen, how to value hard work, how to dress professionally, how to show up as your authentic self while still being professional at the same time. So, and that's what Mister's all about.
Man, yeah, you made me think about it. Yeah, because where I went to school, that probably wouldn't have been a thing anyway.
Mhm. And it should have been, right?
Right. It should have
Yeah.
been. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Just having this conversation made me think about something. I saw you speak at an elementary school one time,
Hmm.
and you had a Spider-Man shirt
Yeah.
underneath your shirt, and
Yeah.
you did this thing about the spidey senses. Do you
Yeah.
still do that? Do you still have that
Yeah.
shirt?
Yeah. I still have that shirt. So that shirt was a gift to me. 2000. Look, man, I'm full of stories, man. So that shirt, that blue Spider-Man shirt, the one that I held up, was that Lonnie B?
Yep, yep. It was yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so Lonnie B, look, I was like Jordan in the first in his three-peat, man. Lonnie B had me back like 4 years in a row. Like
Wow.
I can't. And so, but anyway, so that blue Spider-Man shirt was given to me by Rachel Pate Buckley. We were both head counselors at Camp Chemo, where I still volunteer for children with cancer. She was the head counselor for the Peanut Girls, 5 and 6 year old girls. I was the head counselor for the boys. And the theme that year was superheroes. And so she got me that shirt, and the Spider-Man says on the shirt, "My spider sense is tingling." And so when she first gave me the shirt, it was a cool shirt, right? Still one of my favorite shirts. And yes, I still have it. But at the time, I was still a teacher in Orangeburg. And I love the small things, Terrence. I pick up on them and finding ways to connect with my students. And even though I was already doing it, I didn't have a name for it, something that I could connect to and my students could connect to. I was a natural at, teaching a lesson and it not going the way I wanted to go, and then switching it up. And so that shirt, I started developing a spider sense for teaching. And so I would be very intentional about, as I was walking my kids to the lunchroom, or if we were on the playground, watching them in their natural state and allowing my spider sense to naturally create content and instructional ideas for me to teach them. And so I have so many examples of that. One of my favorites is, I was on the playground and I saw my kids just doing this with their hands, right? They were just doing all these things. You probably remember this story
Yeah.
from when I was speaking, right? And so for the normal person, they just saw the kids moving their hands. But I saw the types of lines that I was going to teach in math when I went inside. And so when I saw the kids doing this, I saw parallel lines, I saw intersecting, and then I saw perpendicular. And when I came in the classroom to add a little extra effect to it, my spider sense said, "Take your tie off." I took my tie off, tied it around my head, and had the kids do that. And I said, "Y'all just learn the math standard." And they're like, "Nah, no way, Mr. King." At recess, like, "Yeah, y'all just did it. I'm going to show you real quick because y'all already did it. And some of you that didn't do it, you're going to learn it real quick." And so, Spider-Man is Spider Sense leadership. And then, Terrence, I transitioned out of teaching in 2011 into leadership, being
Yeah.
an advocate for education. Now in teacher leadership. Now that same Spider Sense that I use, in my classroom, I use in leadership now. I use it to make sure that I'm providing the best services for teachers across the state. When I'm volunteering with Camp Chemo programs, when I'm in my church volunteering, at home with my family, being able to read the situation, because that's always beneficial, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Being able to read, look, use the spider sense in your
Hey,
marriage, parents.
you got to.
My wife, shout out to Tasia. Shout out to Tasia. So yeah, that spider sense now is ingrained in all of what I do, right? And still, do I wear the Spider-Man the gray one? I usually wear the gray one or the blue one underneath my shirt. I don't have it on today. I don't do it every day, but yeah, every once in a while, you catch me and say, "Craig, you got Spider-Man shirt on?" It might be a chance that I still got it on, just as a little reminder.
Oh man, that's good stuff, man. What was that transition like from being in the classroom, and then how did you make that decision to transition from the classroom, and what was that feeling like?
Let me tell you, one of the hardest professional decisions ever, because I'm the hopeful optimist when it comes to education. So I believe that we can be better, that we
Hmm.
are getting better in public education. I'm not one of the people that's saying, "Oh, publication is," while some of those things are true. I'm an optimist and I'm solution based. But so that decision was hard for me because when I left teaching in 2011, I wasn't burnt out. I, wasn't necessarily looking for a change in career. The job that I took in 2011 was offered to me 3 years prior, and every year after I turned it down. So when I was
Wow.
district teacher of the year in 2008, I got offered the job to be governmental affairs, and I turned it down. And at the same conference every year, I kept getting offered the same job, turned it down again, turned it down again. And so let me tell you what was happening at that time, Terrence. So again, this is an individual accolade, but just to give you context. So I was district teacher of the year for the school district, and then I started serving on different panels, like Francis Marion. They started their work in addressing education for children of poverty and what that looks like. So I was on that initial panel. I started speaking different places in the state as well as out of the state. All this is happening between 2008 and 2011. So gradually, I'm out of the classroom more than you would want your child's teacher to be.
Right. Yeah.
because, but I'm also growing as a professional, as a leader, because I'm gaining all this valuable experience. So my final year of teaching in 2011, I hadn't decided to leave the job and come work here at PSCA yet, but I remember that last year of my students struggling, and it was because I wasn't there. I take sole responsibility. Some people say I'm too hard on myself, but the number one factor for a child being successful in a classroom is the teacher, and I
Mm.
believe that, regardless of what they have going on at home. Now, those are factors,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Those are factors. Those factors are important to consider as you're navigating the best possible educational outcomes for children. No doubt about it. But I also knew what I did the previous 6 years and how my students were doing in that class. And when I made that decision, the decision to leave was not because I was ready to get out of the classroom. Because if that was the case, I would have done it 3 years prior. I would have taken the flexibility. I would have taken the ability to travel more, to do a lot more things. But I wanted to be in that classroom. In my world, I was going to teach third grade for 30 years and retire. That's
Wow.
that was my plan, right? And
Yeah.
so, but when you are growing in your craft and you are a people first person, like my dad and my mom taught me to be, and you're constantly wanting to serve others. I saw an opportunity to serve others on a state level, and I had a personal tie to the advocacy because I started advocating prior to then. Me being a cancer survivor, and we may get into this later. When I beat cancer, I started advocating for American Cancer Society, American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons out of Rosemont, Illinois, the National Institutes of Health in Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland. And so I started doing all these things in advocacy prior to even doing advocacy in education. So that was appealing too, because I understood in a sense how advocacy works and how to leverage voices collectively. And so, yeah, it was definitely one of the most difficult decisions I made professionally, because just like I'm excited for the decision that I made to become a teacher and the lives that I impacted those 7 years, you know, I also sometimes think about the students that I didn't get to teach because I took this position,
Oh
if that
man.
makes sense. You know what
That's
I mean? So
yeah,
it's like
yeah, I can see that.
I'm
Yeah.
happy at the work because
Yeah.
I'm making an impact. But man, being a third grade teacher, somebody asked me so far what's been my favorite job ever, being a third grade teacher.
Man, I can see that, man. Thinking back to when I was in third grade, that was a good time, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's perfect. It's the perfect age, man. 8, 9 year old. And it's ironic that that was the grade I taught, and that was the student that I mentored my senior year in high school. So it kind of worked out
Wow.
that I was still
Yeah.
in that.
When I did teacher cadets, we did middle school, which is
Mhm.
kind of weird for me because most of the kids I already knew, either they were in my neighborhood or I was in class with their brothers and sisters. So it was like, y'all not really gonna listen to me because y'all just see me as Terrence, whatever. But when we went to elementary schools to read, like that's where I really like was excited to go read the books to the kids and things like that. And even with all that, I still didn't. I'm like, man, I want to go to school to be an engineer. And
Mhm.
so everything with me was when I got to high school, outside of like teacher cadets, was just math and science, math and science. Never thought about teaching it or anything like that. But I just, sometimes wonder about that. Like if I had that representation, would I have followed that path? Even though, like I said, we have educators in my family, and I had an uncle that was always trying to get me to, hey, you should go and teach. You could do this and do that. And I was like, nah, I just don't want to. But looking back, I was like, would that have mattered? And I really do think it would have mattered if I had saw that. I probably would have taken that career path. But hey,
Yeah, it matters, man. You just never know. And yeah, I had those thoughts about what about the students that I did get to teach, but I
yeah,
also am reminded every so often when I run into former students or they reach out to me, some of which who I talk to on a regular, it makes a difference, man. It shows that I made the right decision.
yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, like on a state level, it's just like when you planting seeds, you're planting seeds, but those seeds are growing up to be trees, and then those are different apples that have different seeds. So
You go.
you know, you very well have probably touched the students that you probably went in the classroom on a larger scale, more than you
Yeah,
probably could have ever. So you could look at it
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I
We
will.
you touched on this a couple of times, being a cancer survivor. When did you find out that you had cancer, and how did that lead you to being a part of Camp Chemo, or did it?
Direct correlation. Absolutely. So the senior year of high school, while I was doing that mentoring of Sterling, I also had cancer growing in my body and I didn't know it. So
Mm,
both things were happening simultaneously. Like the purpose for my life was being formulated by mentoring Sterling, but also another aspect that became that is a very important part of my life, working in pediatric cancer awareness and support via Camp Chemo programs and other groups. Um, that same process was happening my senior year in high school. So I graduated from Manny High School in 1999, and then that summer, um, more specifically July of 1999, I was diagnosed with stage 2 osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer. The cancer was located on the outside of my left tibia and my left leg, partially connected to my left kneecap, and so I was on track to start state in the fall of 99, but I had to not attend state to go through chemotherapy. I had major surgery on my left leg, had some allergic reactions to the chemotherapy, um, had to um, learn how to walk again. One of the reactions I had to the chemotherapy, at the time they had never seen it. My reaction to methotrexate, where my throat swelled up, temperature spiked, 104.
wow.
In movies where you see people say the life flashed before their eyes,
Yeah,
that was legit what happened to me. Like it is so true. And I just saw visions of like little images of growing up, and thankfully I was able to get past that reaction and going through that process. So that was about a 10 to 11 months of intense chemotherapy, surgery, learning how to walk in. And so one of the things that um, the hospital shared with me, is Mary Nell, who was the child life person at the time at the hospital. Her and Jeannie Smith and Julian Ruffin and many of the others that worked there at the time. They told me about Camp Chemo, which was a camp that they had for children with cancer. And prior to that, I was part of a group called LI, Lasting Impressions, which was a teenage support group housed at then Palmetto Health, but now Prisma Health
okay.
Children's Hospital. And so I went to Camp Chemo one year that I was eligible because I was about to age out. They do ages 5 to 18. And so I was able to go that one summer. And then it just made such a profound impact on me. And the following year, I'm not afraid to say this publicly now because this summer is going to be my 25th year. So, and I'm sure the founder, Ms. Linda Wells, nobody's going to question her because she's the queen of Camp Chemo, but she bent the rules for me. So you were supposed to skip a year before you came back as a counselor in training, but she was like, Craig, like there's something in you. We need you as a counselor at camp. So she bent the rules for me to come back that following year. So I went as a camper in the summer of 2000. And then the summer of 2001, I became a CIT, and I've been there ever since, holding different roles within Camp Chemo programs, not just a counselor, head counselor, now chief counselor at the camp, also immediate past chair of the Camp Chemo Advisory Council, that helps support partner events, give guidance to staff and hospital workers working with the children, and also a patient mentor, mentoring a lot of newly diagnosed patients, helping with fundraisers, doing my own fundraiser myself, which I'm bringing back.
That was
Um,
going to be my next question. Yeah.
yeah, because you came to my last one,
Yeah.
Terrence. You and your wife came to my last one in 2019 before the world shut down, and
Yeah.
so so I'm gonna go ahead. You know what? I'm gonna put it on myself now because I'm gonna say it out loud the date, Terrence.
Okay. Okay.
If I say it on your podcast, now I gotta do it, right? So
Exactly.
September 20th, you heard it first on the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. September 20th, 2025. We're gonna have Celebration of Life Gala come back. And I made sure all you Gamecock fans, y'all are not home. Okay. Y'all are not home that day. So And the Bulldogs, I don't think are home either. So anyway, that's kind of my role with Camp Chemo programs. I'm just supporting so many. When you and I get it, right? The gift that so many cancer survivors have to be able to continue to live and do the work and love on their families. But then there's so many that don't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
There's a screenshot. I won't show it on here, but I have a screenshot of one of my former campers on my phone who I only got to know for 6 days. So he came to camp Monday and then left on Saturday back in 2009. And he made the most profound impact on me in 6 days. And he has been a screenshot on my phone since then. My wife is okay with it. I said, I'm not changing it. I'm not changing it. He's always going to be on my phone. And I do that for a number of reasons, Terrence, because when I wake up in the morning, I clear the notifications. I need that reminder for that everybody did make it.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to not waste is the wrong word, but not live out this blessing that I have. To not just impact people in education, but people affected by cancer, because I know how that feels. Like
Yeah.
I know what it's like to lose loved ones and friends to cancer. And I also know this responsibility that I have being a 25-year cancer survivor. And so I have that picture of my former camper that I look at every day. And it's important for me to remember that, because that's part of my why. And so Camp Chemo's all over, man. It's on my water bottle. It's on one of my watches that I have. It's important to me. It's important work that we do.
Man, I appreciate you even doing that, just, giving back. I'm a firm believer that everything we go through is not just for us, it's for other
Mm-hmm.
people, it's to help other people. Um, you've talked about that all through this podcast, about giving back, about impacting people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one of those things. Even somebody who has a cause or something that might not even be cancer related, just hearing you and seeing your story is impactful, because a
Yeah,
lot of times we get into, especially nowadays with social media, everybody kind of wants to, and I understand you can't tell everybody everything, but
sure.
people want to kind of keep things to themselves because they're embarrassed or they think it makes them look a
Yeah,
certain kind of way, but you don't know who needs to hear your story. You don't
yeah,
know who you need to share that with. And I just appreciate you using your platform. I appreciate you, giving back, because it's plenty of people could have just said, okay, I'm done. All right, I'll see y'all later. But
yeah.
you came back, you gave back, you continue to give back. So I just wanted
Mm-hmm.
to say thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you saying that, Terrence. It's I know my call and my responsibility. For anybody out there listening that you fall in kind of that pot that you know what, I'm not a loud person like Craig King. Like I'm not loud. I'm not going to share my story with anybody that wants to listen. But you do have those one-on-one interactions, whether it's on your job, whether it's in passing, or you talk to somebody and have a conversation and you have a connection, not just a terminal illness, but just something that may have been a thorn at one point in your life, but then God brought you through it, and it's a blessing for you, and you feel in that moment that you can make a difference, because that one-on-one interaction sometimes can do more good than a viral social media post. So
Yeah.
um, it's all about my good friend Kobe, who I podcast with, which Conversations with Craig and Kobe. Shameless plug. I know we gotta get back in the lab. I know, but on one of our episodes, Kobe, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, "How are you going to live when you're no longer here?
Mm. Hey.
How are you going to live when you're no longer here?" Meaning that one-on-one interaction, coming on Friends podcast to just talk about the goodness and the blessings that you experienced in your life story, not for, hey, look at me, but because it's going to inspire somebody, leaning into your gift, leaning into your family, because I believe that should be healthy first before you do anything outside of the home,
Yeah.
right? But that is helping you live when you're no longer here. And here's the other part to it, Terrence. I talk about it in my book that I wrote in 2018, The Path to Exceptional Living. There are two types of bridges that we build in our lives. We build a bridge that bears our name, which is important. The Brown Sugar Podcast. Y'all need to know that Terrence Elmore is the host of this. When he writes his books, he needs to have his name on there. That's a bridge that he is building. So 3 generations from now, when people are watching the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast and he's no longer physically here, that bridge was built. He's building that bridge. You're building that bridge right now. However, those bridges that Terrence, I know he builds when no one's looking, that's not on social media, those are also contributing to how Terrence is going to live when he's no longer here. Same thing with me. Like that is, we all have expiration, right?
Yeah.
And so no matter where you fall in that, you have the ability to live when you're no longer here. So it's up to you right now to figure out how that's going to be.
You took me to my next question, man. Your book, The Path to Exceptional Living, 15 Lessons to Living an Extraordinary Life. How did you get started writing that? And another question I like to ask, anytime somebody has numbers, was it just 15 things to begin with, or did you have to condense it?
Oh man, let me tell you. So, all right. So the book, like my first book, I always struggled with what type of book I wanted to write, whether it was a like motivational book, whether it was an education book, whether it was a leadership book. And so I put all 3 of those together and I just started typing. My shout out to my writing coach, Tamika Sims. She's my book coach that helped me navigate writing my book and editing my book and getting on my nerves too. But that is what a good coach does.
Yes.
Get on your nerves. You know, a good writing coach will get on your nerves. If they don't get on your nerves, you don't have a good coach.
No.
But shout out to Tamika. And so I just started writing it, and I wanted the book to not have chapters in them. So I have exceptional lessons. So each exceptional lesson came from a interaction that I had with a family member, a complete stranger, or like the be a bridge builder exceptional lesson just happened while I was walking down the street and I saw this little mini bridge in the middle of a puddle. And so that process was a labor of love. It probably took me altogether probably about 4 years to write. I just started writing and finally got to the point. So when you got to the 15, shout out to Kobe again. Let me tell you, man, Kobe's my guy, man. So I remember still working on the book. And at the time I had 14 exceptional lessons written. And I was still trying to figure out what my title was going to be. Like I didn't have my title yet. And Kobe dropped some gems on me, man. He said, you need to highlight the 15. Like, because initially I wasn't going to put the number on the book. He said, you want to highlight the number and have the number on there somehow. And so, because that's going to extend, which is telling me something I need to do that I hadn't done yet. This is speaking to me. He said, that's going to allow you to extend that book to do a workbook or to do a workbook that accompanies the exceptional lessons. Because the number does something unique to a book.
Yeah.
And he gave me that piece of advice. I'll never forget it. It was at SCAPSI conference years ago. But then the title of the book, no lie, God literally whispered it to me in my ear at about 5 a.m. one time. I was staying at my brother Carlton's house. I'll never forget it. I was spending the night at my brother's house when he lived in Columbia. And it was about 5 a.m, Terrence. And I literally heard the voice in my ear. It said, the path to exceptional living. Like literally every single word was, and I jumped up out of my bed. And my coach had reminded me that I needed to put everything on Google Docs. So no matter what device I was using, it was saved, right?
Yeah.
So not just do all my writing in Microsoft Word on a laptop. So I immediately pulled up my Google Docs and typed the path to exceptional living. And I came up with the 15 lessons to live an extraordinary life because Kobe kind of helped give me that advice on putting that number in there. So,
man, shout out to Kobe.
Shout out to Kobe, man.
Conversations with Craig and Kobe is one of my favorite podcasts. How
Oh
did
man, you just saying that because I'm on here.
No, I'm serious, man. Because, a matter of fact, around the time when you started your podcast was around the time I started mine. And I really,
That's
really, yeah, like your conversations were really, and I say word because it's been a minute since you dropped the episode, but
yeah. Yeah, no jazz, man. Yeah, you hit me. You're right.
but I
You're right.
really enjoy the conversations that you two have, man. There were some conversations that got really deep, and it's always something in those conversations that I'm able to pull something out of. So I know anybody who listens to it is able to pull something out of. But how did you all get started with that podcast?
Man, it's a story, man. You won't believe it. So, um, during the pandemic in 2020, shout out to the GOAT of leadership, Ron Harvey. I don't know if you know Ron Harvey.
Yeah.
Ron Harvey during the pandemic started a leadership call. I think once a week, every Monday morning, I believe, where he invited leaders to come on. And I had already known Kobe. Kobe and I were already good friends. But we both were on that Zoom. And I'm going to get to how that led to the podcast. So we're doing the podcast every week. Me and Kobe getting on, and then one day Kobe calls me after the podcast is over, after the leadership call was over, and he was like, "Craig, I just got an assignment downloaded from God." And I was like, "All right." He was like, "I got to write a book in 7 days." So I'm like, "Okay." He was like, and I don't even think he asked me to be his companion and accountability partner for the next 7 days, but I can tell that's what he needed.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe he was calling me for that reason. But so I was like, and it's just organic, man. I said, all right, let's do it, man. Let's do it. And so, like, literally, Tasia would Tasia would tell you, I was like, babe, for the next 7 days, my phone gonna ring. It might be 1 in the morning. Don't be don't be upset with me that my phone ring at 1:30 in the morning. It's Kobe. I'm helping him write this book in 7 days. So over the next 7 days, I was his navigator, right? I was his thought partner when he bounced ideas off of me. And the book he wrote was tied to a story on leadership. And so anyway, fast forward to he wrote the book in 7 days, like completed. And then after that, we got on a shout out to oh man, I'm dropping name Jay Haleen. He had a studio that we used, and so Kobe and I,
Yeah, he did.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about in
Yeah.
River, man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly how you
the
pronounce it.
studio, and we just talked about that process. Like we talked about how I was there for him, like the late night calls, all the things. So we did this podcast episode, and we realized we were onto something.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward to me reaching out to Shantae. Shout out to Kingdom Culture, Shantae Darby, who my mom taught in high school, who has a studio, who's been doing a lot of work in the community, in media, and called Shantae and said, "Hey, man." Well, before that, me and Kobe was like, "We got to do a podcast. Like, we got to get this out of us. Like what we are having in regular conversation. This is good stuff. Like
Yeah.
we just get out." And so call Shantae, "Hey Shantae, can we use your studio?" And we got the business part of it handled or whatever. And we just did a bunch of batch recording. And you know about that. Like you try to knock out 4 or 5 in a day.
Yeah.
Kind of a head start. And so we started doing that. And that first season was heavy good, man. And we always joke now when we talk on the phone, we're like, we got to start recording our phone conversation. But that's how it got started, man. And as you probably know, Kobe's a full-time entrepreneur. So, catching him, and that's kind of why we haven't been able to connect recently, but we're going to do it, man. We're starting to see our fans in these streets. And they're telling us we need to get back in the lab. But shout out to Kobe, Kobe the Wiz, Shantae Darby. We're a 3-headed monster. I mean, Shantae's not on the podcast, but Shantae does the mixing. We recorded the jingle in his
Oh
studio.
wow, yeah.
It's Kobe and I on the jingle in the beginning and the end. That's us recording it in his studio. So yeah, it was a special moment, man. Like if we don't record another episode, which we will, that was such a needed point,
Yeah.
right? But here's the thing about being around people that are going to constantly make you grow. None of this happens without Ron Harvey. You can say, "Oh, you and Kobe were friends already," you know what? But what we got out of that podcast with Ron Harvey, what we got weekly, learning from other business leaders from across the state during the pandemic and how you navigate the pandemic.
Yep.
How does leadership transform during the pandemic? How do you still get things out of you that are inside of you? None of that happens without Ron Harvey. And guess what I know Ron would say? Ron would say, well, somebody else did something that really inspired me to even have this call weekly. And you'll
Yeah.
start seeing this pattern and this butterfly effect. And that goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. How are you going to live when you're no longer here?
Mm.
Like by listening and answering the call, being around people that are going to make you grow and give you opportunities to impact generations you'll never meet. That's what it's all about, bro.
Yeah. Wow. And that's that's
Yeah,
that's a good place to wrap right there.
yeah,
Before
yeah.
I let you get out of here, I just got one more question. What's one thing about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you wish that more people knew? If anything, because you open book, so it could be something.
Yeah, yeah. I know people usually get everything, whether they want to or not. That they don't know about
Yeah,
me.
I mean, it could be like you wear one green sock, one blue sock. I mean, anything.
Yeah. So people that follow me on social media probably know this, but I am beginning to love the process of whole hog barbecue.
Ooh,
Yeah, see,
man, yeah,
so I am, and again that love, I've been around it my whole life.
yeah,
Around it my whole life, but I never appreciated the art that goes along with whole hog barbecue. And guess where that directive came from? We didn't just start doing that in 2019 by chance.
right.
That directive came from my father when he was in hospice on his deathbed. So me and my brothers were standing around my dad, and the room he was in, if you look to the right, you can see the pit that he had built like in 1988 that I used to see my cousins and uncles and grandfather cook on as I was growing up, but I wasn't connected to the process of the work that went with it. Um, but over the years, that became like a dumping ground and trash and just boarded up and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And so he was very clear. He said, I want y'all to clean the pit up and I want y'all to bring back cooking on the pit. And so when he passed away in 2018, it took us a little over a year, but we started getting the pit cleaned out, doing what we needed to do, enlisted the help of my cousin Dwayne and Daryl and some other people in the community that my dad grew up with and family members. And um, we cooked our first whole hog in November of 2019, I believe. And so we've done it at least once a year ever since. So yeah, I'm starting to love the process of that and trying different things as we're doing it because it's an art form to do,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And when we first did it, we were going to be happy if we completed it, but now the barbecue actually tastes really good.
yeah,
It's really good, and it's a community event, and that's another thing like about it. So we usually do it around the holidays. So my cousins that may have moved away, they come over. We don't do it the old school way. So we have a line of electricity running to the pit, and we watching TV and football and having a good time. But that's one thing.
Oh
Whole hog
man.
barbecue. I'm not going to give my name Pitmaster yet, but I'm coming. Check with me in a couple years. I might be labeled as a Pitmaster then. We're still learning, but yeah, that's one.
Hey, and then I have to get you on my other podcast, Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast. We get you on there. We talk about you being a pit master.
All right, let's do it. Let's do that.
Let the people know how they can get in contact with you, how they could support you in any way, any information you want to share.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter or X, Instagram at CQ King or Craig King Group on both platforms. Facebook, Craig Q King or Craig King Group. My website is www.craigkinggroup.com. You can connect with me there as well, purchase my book, the links to the 2 podcasts that I host, Conversation with Craig and Kobe, and also the PSDA podcast. And any other information about bookings, purchasing my book, speaking engagements, anything like that, would love to connect with all of you. And finally, thank you, Terrence, for having me, taking the time to allow me to just share my world with the world.
Oh man, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on. Everybody connect with Craig. The information will be in the show description. And as always, remember, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.